gamers, gals, non-binary pals, I want to give a little bit of a yap about TwitchCon, which I literally just got back from. Like, I landed 9 hours ago, ran like 40 errands, and now I'm back home to stream, just as God intended. And MBT, you guys may have seen on the timeline, made a little Twitter thread. As you've probably gathered, I'm not at TwitchCon this year. Been thinking about my place online over the past few months, and ultimately, I don't think it really made sense for me to go. Little thread, I guess. And again, this is mainly just an opinion thread. This isn't to be like,
well, MBT is wrong about everything, and he should go to because he's a dumbass Yu-Gi-Oh nerd and doesn't understand the real complexities of Gunnar bait content. Like, he's not a tier 3 sub to Amrith like I am.
But like when I read this thread, it kind of didn't sit right with me in a very specific way, and that was kind of hard to put into words. So I kind of hashed it out with like Mark. Overall, I kind of came up with this like idea regarding to what I kind of find Twitch as, and where him and I kind of have diverging opinions. So let's get into the jazz. Want to start by saying no disrespect for the people who did go. It seemed like a fun time. I'm just realizing not like the target demo for this kind of thing. I mentioned this last year after going, but more than anything else, TwitchCon seemed like a place for fans of Twitch. It feels like there exists this sort of platonic ideal of a streamer, a person who plays whatever the newest game is in between offering takes. And my impression last year was that Twitch is an entire ecosystem built around that archetype. Now, from what I've sort of discussed with people and kind of based on my own experience, this is a very common opinion held by people who sort of look from the outside into Twitch. It is very easy for people who are unfamiliar with Twitch to kind of be like, oh, Twitch is kind of like, here's Voice Critical, like playing Black Myth Wukong, or like here's Kai Cenat playing like Elden Ring.
Speak! All hail! Lord Dwarf! All hail! Lord Dwarf!
It's very easy to kind of look at it in a very surface way. In the same way, it's very easy where if you're not like a very, very, very frequent online watcher of like 50 different things, it is to kind of look at other communities at a very surface level. Like a lot of people, like if you search up like Yu-Gi-Oh content on YouTube, like you can kind of assume that a lot of the content that exists is like, oh, here's a fan animation. Here's like Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged. Here's like maybe people talk about the current metagame. Here's some skits. Here is like some competitive content. Like people aren't very, like if you have a very surface level of Yu-Gi-Oh! Like you're gonna get fed the same 5 to 10 videos that everyone and their moms has seen before, you know what I mean? And it's very easy to kind of be sucked into this idea that these few streamers like Critical or Kai Cenat or like IShowSpeed or whatever are the quote-unquote majority of streamers, when in reality it's not really that. It's just that they just happen to be the most popular streamers. And even if they weren't like the most popular streamers, this is still like what they would do and would be like a very common form of content on Twitch if you looked at it from a surface level, because again, the #1 category on Twitch is like just chatting or like whatever the latest game is, because that's just kind of like how natural hype cycles like live and die. Like most people, surprisingly enough, aren't like hyper fixated on like a singular game. Like there's a reason a lot of us are very hyper fixated on Yu-Gi-Oh, and it's probably to do with a lot of developmental issues, me included, by all means. But like most people don't have one thing that they're extremely like try hard and die hard on, to the same extent like maybe Yu-Gi-Oh players are, or League of Legends players are. Even League of Legends is like, even though it's literally the biggest game on planet Earth, it's not like the biggest thing that you could sort of like force down mid and you will immediately automatically become the biggest creator on the platform. Like the only reason Tyler1 was able to do so was because, spoiler alerts, while he was fucking permabanned from League of Legends, he played other games like PUBG and like H1Z1 and shit like that. He wasn't just playing League. In the same way that a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh streamers can sometimes feel like this weird plateau with their content or just in general, is because they literally are only playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And like, you know, some people are kind of scared to branch out, or some people feel that branching out can lead to detriment in viewership, and which it can, and is 100% a valid concern. But it's not like you're able to grow beyond a certain limit playing certain games. Like League of Legends, you're never gonna break like 30, 40k. Like Yu-Gi-Oh! You're never gonna break like 2 to 4k. There's a reason why DK is kind of like the most viewed streamer on Yu-Gi-Oh! By like a massive landslide, but he's never broken above like 4 or 5K concurrent viewers. After a bunch of sessions, I got the impression that their idea of how creators should engage with the platform isn't do what you want, it's you need to be following these steps to become famous. And once you have become famous people want to see you play Wipeout on stage. And this is like, again, another kind of see above take where actually do talk to creators and you do talk to the people who like drive analytics and the people who like look at streams like literally 24/7 and ask them like, oh, like what do you guys, based on like pure raw statistical data, see what works. A lot of them are going to be like the #1 driver of successful streams is being passionate and being personable and having like a real genuine personality about like the games you play and the sort of things that you do, and that can drive people to watch you within a community and can overall lead to increased growth in viewerships. Because if all it took was to kind of just like lay XYZ game, then like every Among Us streamer would be like a bajillionaire, you know what I mean? Like you're gonna tell me that like just because like I booted up Minecraft, I'm all of a sudden the greatest streamer of all time and I'm gonna be like grooming miners bad chest. But this kind of idea kind of leads to this thought where people who feel like they've plateaued can kind of run into this mindset where they feel very kind of dissatisfied or angry at the system or frustrated at the system, where they feel that they have to like emulate others in order to succeed. But you know, very few people who sort of, you know, just basically rip it and ship it don't really, like 99% of the time, people who are just copycats, they almost never succeed. Because it's not organic, it's not authentic, and like above all, people do want to watch content that they can kind of tell that the creator is very into. And like obviously at a certain point, like you can kind of just do whatever once you hit a critical mass of people, just because you've grown so large or your stream is kind of too big to fail. Like the easiest example could be like XQC, where like XQC could literally be like watching a video, watching like a movie, not saying anything, and people are still gonna watch his stream.
Pathetic, isn't he? Just a little bit.
But that's just kind of the natural inclination of Twitch viewership. I succeeded by not trying hard and just copying everyone else. Yep, true. I just booted up Among Us, shit mic quality, shit camera quality. I just played Among Us unscaled for 48 hours, and just like that, I paid off all my student loans. Oh god, yes. Increasingly, it feels like not a place for people with a very specific niche looking to carve it deeper. It feels like a place for people with like opinions on the Blunkster drama. I'll keep doing me, but I definitely feel like someone who streams on Twitch and not a Twitch streamer. And again, this kind of falls into the above, where people kind of have to understand it's not like the system keeping you down. It's not like Twitch is like, we're never going to promote Twitch beyond like your viewer base. It's literally the fact that some viewer bases just don't have large populations of viewers. Like if we go back to the Decade scenario, there's a reason he's never broken like above 4,000 to 5,000 concurrent viewers, and that's just because naturally Yu-Gi-Oh does not have enough active viewers at a time to support more than 4,000 to 5,000 viewers, just because naturally Yu-Gi-Oh is not a very popular game. And you could make the argument that, oh well, Twitch should be taking steps in order to make sure that these games are more properly promoted in regards to like League of Legends or whatever. But I mean, Twitch can try and force, you know, certain games down mid. Like the easiest example I could give would be like sometimes when like Among Us takes off, like they'll show you like 500 Among Us streamers, PUBG or whatever. Like yeah, sure. Like sometimes Twitch will try and force a flavor of the month game, and we did have that with Yu-Gi-Oh, but it does still at the end of the day kind of rely on the current viewership population and kind of how that game is overall received. Like let's not pretend like the launch of Master Duel was exactly a success, you know what I mean? Like we all saw exactly how fast and how hard like Master Duel kind of crashed after like month 1 or 2. That's just kind of the reality of the situation in regards to these sort of things, where carving out a niche within a community is a possibility and is nothing to be ashamed of and is a very successful way to sort of have a stream. But depending on what your quote-unquote niche is, you kind of have to bite the bullet in regards to what success is going to look like within that niche in regards to other much more wide casting lenses of other categories. Like it's very, very easy to get big or get bigger on like just chatting or like League of Legends relative to Yu-Gi-Oh, just because naturally these games or categories have much larger communities relative to Yu-Gi-Oh. And to be clear, I think Twitch knows this. When I went last year, it kind of fell at odds with itself. It was half anime, half gaming PC tech demo, half business conference, and half celebrity game show between 90 people I didn't know. So I stayed home. And he is right about these things, but that isn't necessarily a quote-unquote bad thing. Last year's TwitchCon was definitely something that was not good. I thought like Twitch got a lot of feedback regarding it. I mean, I was there in person, Roslyn was there in person, MBT was there in person. The TwitchCon venue that year was kind of dog shit. It felt very scattered. It was in a relatively bad location. Like, as much as I love gambling in Vegas, like, let's not pretend that Vegas is a great location for people under the age of 21. You know what I mean? And Vegas is just like, I mean, it's fucking Vegas. Like, let's not pretend like that's a great place to be for more than 2 days. And regarding the venue, of course, like, it kind of did reflect in the venue. Like, the artist alley was this tiny tucked away corner. And overall, it did feel like that year's TwitchCon was very scattered and misorganized and like misplaced. It felt like a really shitty jigsaw puzzle. But when that sort of thing operates at a very high level and is actually properly planned out and sort of thing, that is where we get this year's TwitchCon, because this year's TwitchCon was way more organized. It was way more laid out properly. The booths had like real structure. The artist alley wasn't a fucking broom closet. It was actually like its own open air floor, like literally an entire open air stadium of just like a billion artists. It was super cool. And it felt like this year's TwitchCon had something for everyone instead of just being a shitty hodgepodge mess like it was last year, because last year it felt very scattered and disorganized, but this year it felt like there was a very purposeful placement of the booths. It felt like there was a purposeful organization of the community areas and the panels. God, I hated Vegas. Oh god, yes. Vegas was so fucking dog shit. Like, let's not pretend that Vegas was a good con. It was like actively one of the worst cons I've ever been to. It was great. I had a blast. It felt like an anime con. Yeah, it felt like an anime convention where I could actually network with people, because at the end of the day, everyone there is a creator, and if creators feel like they actually have a space to communicate and talk with each other in a genuinely pleasant environment, or in an environment that does foster sort of like, you know, this very welcoming air, this sort of like welcoming air, or this general feeling that you could actually enjoy the space that you're in, that is going to lead to a lot more networking. That's going to lead to a lot more business development, that sort of deal. That is what I got out of this year, personally, because again, the blurt parties were great. The partner party was great this year. That sort of deal. That sort of stuff was, you know, head and shoulders above anything else Vegas could have done in like a million lifetimes. I didn't get into the blurt party. It's all right, Logs. Next year we'll get you into the blurt party. Like, I was begging Derek, who's like one of the founders of Blurp, to be like, Derek, please let my homies in. And it was so bad that like my friend Mark, who literally works on extensions like directly with Blurp, and his Twitch staff could barely even managed to scam one person in, which was Sushi, was actually absurd. Like, they were like, the staff were like, don't do that again. Like, please don't do that, because it was a party that was literally sold out. Like, to give you context, this was the party that fucking Iron Mouse was at. Okay, like, I didn't even know that she was at TwitchCon, which is insane. Also, Jaden Animations, Nuxtaku's best friend, which I met. That's right. Where's the fucking picture? Oh god, yes. Shout out to Jaden. She was so nice for like the 3 minutes I talked to her. OMG, you mentioned Nuxtaku's best friend. They quitted YouTube together. Yep, it was them. Nuxtaku and Jaden both have ADHD and quit Yu-Gi-Oh together. Yep, big bat chest. But yeah, there also is like this idea where MBT can say like he kind of felt disconnected from the TwitchCon community as a whole. And that's kind of just because naturally the TwitchCon community doesn't really consist of Yu-Gi-Oh players. Because we assume that, like, you know, TwitchCon is only for like the 1% of the 1% of TwitchCon of Twitch viewers who are both extremely into Twitch or in internet culture and are willing to go out for like a super fan type deal. If you're like a Yu-Gi-Oh creator, you have like almost no incentive to go, because you're like, your one major niche is Yu-Gi-Oh. Like, oh, maybe we could do like tabletop, and then you go to like the tabletop section and it's like kind of deserted, and then you go to like the tabletop panels and it's like exactly one D&D thing, and then you realize like, oh, artist alley, like sure, like I like anime to an extent, but I'm not gonna drop like $1,000 just to go to one artist alley. You're kind of thinking, oh, maybe I could go for like the community, but again, there's not going to be that much community there in the first place, because a lot of them kind of share the same thoughts I do in regards to, you know, this sort of kind of want to go but don't really kind of want to go type deal. So a lot of people within like hyper niche spaces like Yu-Gi-Oh or whatever feel that it's just not worth going, and that can lead to a very isolating experience if your one connection with Twitch or, you know, this sort of content building space is exactly only Yu-Gi-Oh or only another hyper niche like Alestrals or Pokemon TCG or something like that. I don't know why the Yu-Gi-Oh players jerk off Twitch so much. I'm on this dumb site just to network with them. The reality reality is that Twitch is kind of like the only site where live streaming for gaming is like taken seriously. Like, I'm not gonna pretend that Twitch is like a perfect god tier site, but Twitch definitely is like the only one where you could tell people you're streaming at and they will actually probably pay attention in like any meaningful regards. YouTube is better. The problem is YouTube doesn't care. YouTube doesn't care about YouTube gaming. I've talked to so many YouTube executives, and by me I mean Mark, and I'm parroting his information, but so many conversations has been had with like YouTube gaming that any money kind of spent on YouTube gaming to improve it could just be spent on like YouTube, the site itself, for infinitely more reward. Like, why bother giving a single shit about YouTube gaming when you could just give a fraction of that money to normal YouTube and get infinitely more payoff? You know what I mean? They don't, and even then it's still better. Like, yeah, it could be better, but unfortunately most people don't really, it's not so much better that people are willing to migrate over to a completely new site with a completely different UI and UX and blah 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 type deal. Like, Twitch has a very unique vibe to it, in which maybe just through like decades of conditioning, it feels way more personal, where YouTube kind of feels like you're watching a video with text, if that makes sense. But that's neither here nor there. This has kind of just been like a tiny little rant regarding why I disagree with MBT's sort of gripes with Twitch and TwitchCon as a whole. I think that we have very different perspectives on what the Twitch community is and what we expect to get out of it, and sort of growth strategies and blah. And yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Let me know if you guys were at TwitchCon this year, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.